Hello little gems and welcome back to the Little Gems of Baha channel. Today I have a very special story for you about Melba and Jim Loft. Melba was the first Canadian of Indigenous descent to join the Baha'i community in Canada, followed soon after by her husband James Loft, who liked to be called Jim for short. He declared on April 7, 1948. This story is about the childhood of Jim and something very special that happened to him. Before we get into the story, make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel and hit that bell button so you're notified every time we upload a new video. And comment down below what stories you'd like to hear next. Now let's get into the story. On the afternoon of September 9, 1912, 4-year-old James Loft was actually sitting on a fence outside of Oshawa, Ontario, alongside the railroad tracks. 5 hours earlier, a train had left Montreal, beginning its 14-hour journey to Buffalo. It had stopped in Brockville near the Thousand Islands about 10:30 a.m. and was now making its way across the north side of Lake Ontario. At about 3:30 p.m. near the town of Oshawa, Jim watched the train hurl by. Through one of its windows, he saw something that so overwhelmed him that he fell backwards off the fence and onto the grass below. Ouch! He described what he saw as a man wearing a long, flowy white robe, waving from the train. Later in life, he would explain that this was his earliest surviving memory. Jim Loft was born on July 13, 1908. His ancestral home was the Tyendinaga Mohawk Territory, but he grew up in Oshawa, Ontario. His father, Newton Loft, lost his leg in a train accident when Jim was just a little boy. The family would camp at the side of the road where his father made and sold wicker chairs. But chair sales couldn't support his family. Jim went to work at the age of 12, claiming to be 15, so that he could earn a legal wage and support his family. Jim was greatly affected by the prejudice he encountered growing up as an Indigenous boy in rural Canada. Years later, his daughter, Evelyn, wrote, "He knew he was Indian, but not the kind he was called by ignorant people. He said it just wasn't from the children or his peers, but from the so-called religious ladies. Though submerged in a society that had little regard for him, he lived in an area where people didn't respect him, and that can be so hurtful, little gems." Jim believed from childhood that racial equality was a just principle. And he later said that he felt a strong pull to spiritual matters. During his difficult teen years, he would often ask God to help to inspire him to alleviate the poverty, oppression, and alcoholism that plagued his people. So he would often pray to God to help him. On October 23, 1931, Jim married Melba Wutong, who was raised on the Curve Lake Ojibwe First Nation. Like Jim, she had a keen interest in spiritual topics. It was Melba's friend, Emma, who first spoke to her about Baha'u'llah and abdu'l-baha. Melba was the first Canadian of Indigenous descent to join the Baha'i community in Canada, followed soon after by Jim. The vision from Jim's childhood soon became clear. "Now I know who that old man was," he said. It was abdu'l-baha when he was in this country. It had taken Jim decades to make the connection. In 1949, Jim and Melba settled in the Tyendinaga Reserve and dedicated themselves to serve and support the First Nations community. Despite grueling poverty, they were unswayed in their dedication. They never gave up. For Jim, the memory of the man in a flowing white robe waving to him from the train inspired him throughout his life until his final day. I hope you enjoyed that story, and now this is the part of the video where we answer questions about the story. So you can pause after each question to answer on your own, and whenever you're ready, just unpause to hear the answer. So let's begin. Question number 1. How old was Jim when he saw abdu'l-baha? If you answered 4 years old, you are correct. Question number 2. What was abdu'l-baha on when he waved at Jim? He was on a train. And if that's what you answered, you would be absolutely correct. Question number 3. What did Jim's dad sell? If you answered wicker chairs, you are correct. Question number 4. When Jim was going through his difficult teen years, what would he do? If you answered, he would ask God for help or pray for inspiration, then you would be correct. Question number 5. What was the name of Jim's wife? If you answered Melba or Melba Wutang, you are absolutely correct. Question number 6. Who told Jim and Melba about the Baha'i faith? If you answered Emma, Melba's friend, you would be absolutely correct. Question number 7. When Jim learned about the Baha'i faith, he found out who he had seen on the train that day. Who was that special person waving at him? If you answered abdu'l-baha, you are absolutely correct. And our last question is, what memory inspired Jim for the rest of his life? If you answered the memory of abdu'l-baha waving from that train as it hurled by, then you would be absolutely correct. Alright, little gems, this brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed that story, and I hope that Jim and Melba's life story inspires you all to serve your communities. I will see you in the next one. Bye, little gems.